Hi and welcome to the first video in the stationary rope technique series. In this episode I'm going to cover basal anchors. I'm going to show 5 different options for basal anchors. There are many more, but I've chosen these 5 that are going to range from the most simple static tie off using minimal gear, and then right through to more expensive streamlined systems as well. I'm going to start off with the most simple of methods, which is tying a running bowline. So you've already shot your throw line into the canopy. Take the end of the line, walk around the tree. So just simply tie the running bowline. I'm actually going to tie a bowline with Yosemite tie off here just for the added security. And then, because it's a running bowline, you can just cinch that down. And always check your anchor. Get your groundsman or a second person to put the weight on it to check their anchor. And then you're good to go. So you don't need any extra equipment for this. Just need to know how to tie the running bowline, Yosemite tie off for a bit of added security. Otherwise, just tie a normal running bowline with a double overhand knot or a figure 8 knot in the end as a stopper knot. So yeah, most simple form of base tie off. So the second option is just to add in an actual separate piece of rope to make a basal anchor. I've got an anchor ring on the end tied with a anchor hitch and a stopper knot in there. So again, just walk around the tree because the diameter of the tree is quite large, just to fling it around. So all I'm going to do with this one is just take a bight, poke it through the ring, and tie a figure 8 on the bight. So there you've got you can still cinch it down, which you need to do so it doesn't work its way up the tree. And then what you can do, if you have an access line with an eye in the end, just clip it onto that, or take a carabiner and then just tie like an alpine butterfly in the climb line. So this is a fixed anchor still, much like the running bowline, but you've just got this basal anchor which can make things easier in certain situations. So for this third method, we're going to get a little bit more inventive, a little bit more technical, and set up a lowerable base anchor, but using equipment that most tree climbers will have, so it's still not too much expense. So I'm using the same base anchor with the anchor ring. This time I'm going to take a bight through and tie a double figure 8 on the bight, which means that it's going to have 2 points of attachment, which is important for this one. So set and dress that knot. Next I'm going to use a figure 8 descending device for this, so I'm going to make this a lowerable system. So I'm going to connect that into one of these eyes. Secondly, I'm going to take a prusik loop, which is going to act as a backup device and also act so if the groundsman is lowering down the climber for whatever reason, they can then let go and the prusik will hold the climber in place rather than them carry on descending if the groundsman was to let go. So the prusik I'm then going to connect onto the second hole, the second eye, should I say. Now with the figure of 8, I'm going to go over and make a soft lock. Moving on from the soft lock, I'm going to take a bight of the rope through the carabiner and then do 2 half hitches around itself, which is going to then turn into a hard lock. And then place the carabiner through the eye or through the bight and around the rope, all for added security. If in the case of an emergency the climber needed to be lowered down, then you would take off the soft lock, and then you can start lowering the climber down using both the descender and the prusik as kind of working together. And if at some point you need to become hands-free, the prusik will hold the climber, or if say the climber was being stung by wasps or whatever and then they started to attack the person on the ground who's lowering, he can kind of let go and make a run for it, and still the prusik is going to hold the climber in place. It's not going to drop him. Good thing about this system is that the figure 8 descender is really simple to use. Everybody understands a prusik, or should do if they're working on the tree crew. Another point is just make sure that the two gates are opposing, and always check their position when they're resting up against the tree. So that's method 3. This fourth method, I'm going to use a descending device. This one's a Petzl rig. This is quite expensive, but if you've got the kit, or if you find it worth paying the money for what you're going to use it for, then great bit of kit, and it kind of really streamlines the base anchor setup. I'm also going to use a snake anchor, which this is a brilliant bit of kit also because it has lots of small stitched sections in it that you can clip into any one. It's all rated. So here I'm going to show you a little trick as well. I've got a weight on the end of the snake anchor, so for getting the base anchor around the stem of bigger trees, it's pretty handy. So you should, with the weight on, just be able to kind of whip it round. Set up the snake anchor, cinch that right down. Okay, so with the Petzl rig, really simple. Just feed the rope in, making sure you've got it fed in the right directions. It's really good because it has a little diagram inside and on the outside casing. So set that up, connect the carabiner, and then also if you're using any sort of like mechanical device, descending device, you always want to put a backup in. So I'm going to tie a alpine butterfly, and then great thing about this snake anchor is that there's just a lot of extra stitched holes that you can choose from, so just connect that there. That's just to prevent if there's any slippage for whatever reason. It's only going to slip that much, hit the knot, and then it's not going to go any further. So load that down, try and make sure that the handle is on the outside so you're not kind of crushing the handle, it's easy accessible. So currently the Petzl rig is in the belay position. You can see the belay mark lines up with the arrow behind. When you're using this for a basal anchor, it needs to be in the lock position. So I'm going to take the handle, turn it round until it snaps into place, and now you can see the lock marking lines up with the arrow here. That's where you know it's in the lock position. So it needs to be like this the whole time you're climbing, unless you need to use the rig as a belay tool in case of emergency. So that's a really streamlined setup, a little bit more expensive, but really easy to use. Obviously you need to show your groundsman how to use it all first and what's going on with all of these systems, but yeah, great setup. For this final method that I'm going to show you, got this dead-eye sling that's had a mini porter wrap sewn into it. So this bit of equipment is specific for this job, and it's the only thing you can really use it for. It is using it as a lowerable base anchor, but it's really good because any groundsman is going to know how to use this, because we use bigger ones in rigging every day. So I'm just going to tie this on using a cow hitch. This is exactly the same as how you would tie on a rigging rope onto a larger porter wrap. You would take a bight of the climbing line, poke it through the small eye on the porter wrap, round the peg, and then cinch it up. And then what I'm going to do now is fill the barrel of the porter wrap nice and tight, completely fill that, and then just going to make a half hitch to lock out on each one of these pegs on the end. So that now is completely locked out. So put some weight on that, and then we're going to add in a prusik to this system as well, for the same reason that the groundsman or the person lowering needs to be able to become hands-free at any point. So this is an added safety measure. So I'm just going to tie a swabish. That's purely based on the length of this prusik cord and the way the eyes have been spliced, but like a 6-wrap prusik or any kind of friction hitch that's really solid. And then there you have it. That's the 5th method of basal ties. There are many more different variations, but these I felt were 5 quite different options, using all different types of equipment that you can use, from the most basic right through to kind of the most advanced, complicated systems for lowering down. The one main thing is if you're using a basal anchor, always be aware of the rope going up one side of the tree as you're working on the other, because if you're doing any cutting with a chainsaw or handsaw or rigging, you always have to be mindful of that one rope that's under tension, that's got your life in its hands. That's the one main drawback to using a basal anchor rather than a canopy tie. So always be aware and mindful of where that rope is that's got all that load on it, always under tension.